Welcome. My name is Alexander. I'm from Telavox and here today with you esteemed expert to talk about how AI is changing communication and collaboration. Super great to have you here. For all of you that don't know these three esteemed experts, I thought why don't we give you guys the opportunity to talk about who you are and what's your company.
Let me start. So my name is Victor Carlson and I'm the co-founder and CEO at Telavox. And we supply businesses with phone services all over Europe. We're about 20 years into the journey and excited to be here.
Nice.
Great. My name is Madi. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at ElevenLabs. We are an audio AI research and product deployment company. We are on a mission to make information accessible across voices, across sounds and languages, and we do it through those two parts. So developing our own models for text-to-speech, for conversational applications, for language switching, and then building that product layer of how you can use that research, whether it's deploying an agent in your workspace, whether it's creating a voiceover or narration for your content.
Awesome, and I'm Joel, founder and CEO of Sana. At Sana, we connect agents into all of your company's knowledge and data. And so ultimately, we think making knowledge more accessible advances the world and advances your companies. So we're building new tools for employees to access knowledge and make that knowledge useful.
I want to start things off with getting you, Victor, your thought of what do you think is the change we will see in the coming 1 to 2 years of using AI within communication and collaboration?
I think there's going to happen a lot of stuff in basically all different areas of communication. One of the things that I am looking forward to is bridging the language gap. So I had a situation just last week where I'm a foreigner in Spain. I don't know the language, and my gardener came, and we weren't able to communicate, and so we had to call up, his son, and we had to have the conversation around that. And it didn't work out at all. So the AI voice language transaction, I think, is going to be, really breaking down a barrier between countries and people that we haven't seen before. A second thing I'm hoping for is to have more enriched and rewarding conversations. As you have more personalization, you're able to with the human interaction, maybe have more rewarding conversations and on-demand conversations with agents.
I guess, Mari, this goes a lot into your turf as well, talking about voice. How do you think, from your perspective, it will impact the comms and collaborations?
It's the first thing that Victor mentioned is very, very close to heart and very true. Where I kind of experienced that from entertainment side back when in Poland, effectively is a very peculiar way of, if you watch the movie, it's not only badly dubbed, you actually have a single voice or single narrator narrating all the voices. So whether it's male or female voice, you have a single narrator narrating all of it. But to that point that Victor mentioned, I do think it will change. And the reason it will change is not only the transfer of content, that you will have a content in one language and now being available in the other language, but also because the same voice, the same emotion, the same intonation will carry across as well. So you will actually have as it would be the person speaking your language, which will just make it so much more enjoyable and easy and friendly. So this 100% I think will happen. Probably will take a while to do it real time at the scale. I also agree with the agentic piece that you will have more helpers for all types of work that you can do, that you can send to do your work, which I'm sure Sana has a few pieces of those upcoming too. But it's going to just be this incredible way where you have those enablers on your sides to help you on the simple tasks, on researching and information, or on the other side of receiving side if somebody tries to reach you and get information. And then the third thing, something on a very short-term horizon, which I'm excited about, is how a lot of that tooling will just make me and people across the world more productive with that technology being just in back pocket at all times. So even when it comes to voice or speech, now if you could transcribe, understand what's happening, craft the right action points, follow-ups, what happened, and just be able to revisit that at any point, already a great time saver in so many ways, which I think is already happening and will just happen at a higher scale. So those three pieces for sure, the language barriers being broken, the agents being accessible for everyone, and then the simple tooling that lets the technology go in the background and get you more efficient.
Could you tell us, Joel, what's your thought on on like the collaboration part of the AI. How do you think that will affect now that we're coming into the next 1 to 2 years?
I think we had sort of 3 arcs of enterprise AI. The first arc was how do we make information more accessible, like enterprise search effectively. Second arc was assistance. So we were able to ask questions and get all of this knowledge synthesized for us in real time. And the third arc now with agents is that you cannot just find knowledge more available, but you can equally use that knowledge to actually solve the work. And I think we're heading into an era where we're going to have this like polymath employee that has read every document, knows everything about your company, and that can use all of your company's tools too. And I think when you connect company knowledge with the ability to use all of these tools, you'll have it move from just being a really helpful assistant to being a virtual coworker. And that era will be incredibly augmenting for our teams. And I think we've spoken about sort of a few different examples of where this could take us. One example is more industrial revolution style. I'm really excited if this could lead to a renaissance that, ultimately, if every employee is augmented with a tool that has all of the world's knowledge, all of your company's knowledge, all of your tools, like imagine what your organization could go and do with that.
Quick addition there, like now that you said it, it definitely is like a big theme we are seeing where because you have access to that information, it also gives you, so that's one, and then two, because AI tooling allows you to have a skill set you didn't have as much before. So say like the coding tools that just allow you to be okay coder, suddenly you can kind of see this blending of traditionally different distinctions together. I mean, the design engineers, across the company now, like almost every designer will be a design engineer. They can access the information of how the design should look like, some of the engineering code base, and prototype so much quicker. Growth or like the marketing also. Get information, get the engineering, and you are effectively a growth engineer, where you can build a prototype of how to get information easier. So I'm also excited about this, how like every knowledge worker becomes a knowledge in effectively in other areas than their primary domain now with the AI amplification.
And I know, Victor, this is something that you've led right now at Telavox, a lot of how to shift for this like knowledge working mindset and working together with Sana for that as well. What do you think like are key problems to solve here and now today with AI when you're working with partners such as Sana or with Telavox services?
Well, it is very much the access of information and the ability to analyze it very quickly. So what we are doing now is just all across, especially the commercial side, but obviously on the engineering side as well, just connecting all the information streams, creating small agents that are doing different tasks for different parts of the organization. It can be someone just taking the data from customer feedback and just feeding those insights and pass them along in real time putting agents live and answering questions live on our web page, and we're taking away those basic questions and can then elevate the human interactions where we can have co-pilots listening into the calls and giving feedback to the agents on, here are some recommendations, here's how can you solve problems. We're connecting the different data to have problem solving for our customers. So taking everything that we have, like all the data that we're having, and then we have an actual problem, where are we going to look to find the issue here? So yeah, it's just very many different areas.
That's super interesting. And I think also something very interesting here is, especially in Sweden, we've seen this kind of uprise now of voice coming back like as a strong channel, actually seeing a 30% increase in like businesses using voice as a channel more to communicate. And I guess that leads me into Mari, like, how do you think AI voices will actually start to be implemented and adapted into the way of working the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, it's definitely now kind of both the level of quality of the voice that suddenly sounds good, sounds the way that human in many of those intersections. And then two, which was missing for a long time, is there is this better product layer that many companies, including us, are building, where you can actually now adopt it in whether it's customer support, whether it's new ways of engaging customers as part of the product experience, or whether it's a kind of new ways of providing education, healthcare, finance, and that's kind of being shifted. I think the place to your key question, I think the place where we're seeing it the most is actually no, it's pretty distributed. We see a great amount of cases in training, just a simple training of existing employees, where recently we worked with a company in US doing 911 calls, and they created an agent that trains your people that would effectively simulate how a 911 caller would behave, so they can prepare for this very emotional, very hard conversations and get it through. And the same use case of like training employees to be able to prepare, very common, and we are seeing that across, very easy to deploy because it doesn't have that kind of real life implication happening already. Then the second kind of theme is how you can bring it to the customer experience space, so more on the outset of the company of how customers can interact. The first place where we're seeing kind of the adoption shift is handling the information retrieval or basic tasks. So what are the products that you offer? Can you tell me more about what's the right thing for me? Can you help me with the billing request? Can you help me with the logistics request with my shipping information? Very common, easy and possible, and I think this will evolve into more complex tasks. Yeah, and then maybe last piece is like a general companion element of assistance, where now voice is just so much easier to have across as you interact with the technology, where you don't have to be hands on the keyboard, and the kind of layer of the apps is abstracted and just the voice carries across.
Yeah, I think we saw like the first era of chatbots. They were so incredibly cumbersome. Like back in 2016, there were chatbots for every use case that I think a lot of people basically like gave up on that format. That, you know, it felt like unlikely that the ultimate user interface for computers would be that type of chat interface. And then when language models actually started working, it like made sense. This is the most intuitive way to, you know, instruct a computer. I think that's the like audio moment we're having now, where like, of course, the most natural way to instruct your computer is just to talk with it and have a discussion. But considering that the models haven't quite been there yet, it has felt very unintuitive. And now as it's getting more intuitive, I think by default, most experiences will have like interacting with our computers will end up being voice. So it's a very exciting era, and I think it will be like as ubiquitous as chat has become.
100%, and you can like transfer so much more information through voice. Like text is, you know, like you don't know how it's being said, you don't know what's the situation. With voice, you kind of can. Like you get so much more information carried, whether it's the emotion, intonation, whether it's the pauses, whether it's the sounds around that will surround the voice. All of that is now carried across and can like inform that so much better. So I agree, it's definitely a moment for voice and audio, and it's going to be back to being the default. That's how the world started. The voice was first.
That's super interesting. And we'll get more into AI voice in just a sec with Victor as well. But first, I wanted to ask you, Joel, as well. We're talking a lot about like connecting data, making this knowledge sharing like culture together with AI. What do you think are the key takeaway, but also risks of connecting all your company data to AI?
I think that you know, it's like at last, knowledge management is becoming a super important problem for every organization. I think there's a few ways to solve that. One is just better ranking systems. So naturally, as you deploy agents, they'll have a lot of intuition for which context to use. They can read through the document just like you would, and then intuitively understand that this document is more recent or more relevant for this. So I think you'll start seeing much more like LLM as a re-ranker, basically taking that role of feeding the right context into the models. I think the second is you'll deploy agents to like clean up your knowledge. And so you'll want to deploy them to, you know, clean up knowledge that is out of date or knowledge that is conflicting and so on. The third aspect is the issue with there's so much knowledge in your, so much institutional knowledge in your company that is stuck in people's heads. And I think these tools will also make it much easier for you to share your knowledge. And so I think better rankers, knowledge management agents, and better tools to capture knowledge will ultimately enable you to capture your organizational knowledge graph easier. And then as a function of that, you can then deploy that to agents that actually know a lot about your company and your business.
Interesting. And Victor, we'll be talking a lot about like AI voices now, the uprising of it, the technology becoming mature. At Telavox, how do you think right now that this technology is actually accessible, and what can you do today with AI voice technology as a business?
Well, so how we deploy it, and we are getting a very broad uptake in the services, is like what you're starting with, just getting it out there to start answering some of the basic questions, and we're deploying more and more agentic features of it, and as that matures, it opens up for sort of more value for even more industries. But at this point, I think it's much about just getting started and deploying it in the user cases where you can get a good controlled quality, and then just evolve from there on. That is at least how we see the most successful customers of ours doing it. And I think really the agentic part is going to be the thing that is going to drive adoption more and more.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for this great, lovely conversation. It was lovely having you here. And we'll say this thanks for this time.
Yeah,
thank you
so much for having us and for the partnership too.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.